We need to break out of traditional institutions of learning, traditional institutions of media, traditional institutions that tell you how to think and tell you what to believe and what not to believe. And the point here is very simple. A lot of these traditional institutions have run past their due date. We used to live in a society where if you didn't go through these traditional institutions, you didn't go through these traditional avenues of learning, of employment, of all of these other things, that you wouldn't be able to function within a society. But now we have incredible opportunities to us to advance our learning, advance our knowledge, you know, seek new opportunities without necessarily having to go through these traditional avenues anymore. I'm not necessarily attacking these traditional avenues or saying that we don't need them in our society. Every society has institutions that are integral to its functioning. What I'm saying is that currently there isn't much of an incentive, especially for younger people, to operate within these traditional avenues. And considering that we don't have that incentive anymore, it's more than easy for us with the advent of the internet and with other alternative sources popping up for us to break out of these traditional institutions and for us to advance our knowledge, advance skills, and learn more stuff without having to go through these traditional institutions. I'll tell you a bit about myself, for example. Most of the learning that I've done, whether it be about theology, philosophy, history, right, especially for this channel, most of it I've done it by myself. Most of it I've done of my own accord. I don't I haven't studied philosophy or history that much within university, for example, or school. In fact, I'm still a university student. I'm in my first year of uni. And yet I study these things out of my own passion, and the internet has given me access to an incredible number of resources. So I don't have to go do a university course anymore to gain a good amount of knowledge about these things. I can just read a ton of books about it, listen to different lectures about it, and then I can share my thoughts about it online. I don't have to be a university graduate anymore or go through some kind of training to be an expert in a topic. Of course, I'm not claiming to be a scholar here. I'm just a basic student, right? I'm still learning these things. I'm by no means a master in any of this. But my point is that we can adopt this autodidact way of learning things for ourselves and trying to understand them for ourselves, and we can develop these new ideas, and we don't have to rely on traditional institutions. These traditional institutions typically take a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of money, and in many cases, if you can just learn these things for free online, you can gain access to lectures by scholars for free, books and resources for free, articles for free, then it is more feasible and it makes more sense for us then to go through alternative and especially online avenues of learning, for example. The same can be said for employment or skills or various job opportunities. Why, for example, go to your office when you can work remote? Why, for example, go train in an institution when you can gain access to various courses online? Of course, this is not necessarily feasible for every person or every individual. I understand some people, due to the nature of their work, the nature of their training, the nature of their education, have to go to traditional institutions. And by all means, do so if you have to. But for many of us who don't necessarily want to engage in that, and I'm not saying that I'm somehow not operating within these traditional institutions either. I am a university student. I do aim to gain some traditional avenues of work, but I can also advance my own personal learning due to my own passions, for example, outside of the mainstream, outside of these traditional institutions. And I don't simply have to rely upon the traditional institutions. I can also rely upon alternative sources, upon online forms of media, for example, online resources to gain further knowledge and enhance my learning. So we don't have to fully engage in one system, let's say. If, you know, we live in a time where there isn't much of an incentive for us to particularly work hard in one traditional avenue, we can find new avenues to work hard in and gain more results in, let's say, and sort of advance our learning and knowledge through them. In many cases, of course, the traditional institutions of school, of university, are not very effective for education. They don't really, you don't necessarily learn much. It feels more like a burden rather than like an opportunity of you wanting to actually learn. And so, in many cases, you can just learn things that you're genuinely passionate about by yourself. Most of the things that I've learned, which is quite unfortunate, is kind of sad, but I guess it does give a bit of optimism about breaking out of these traditional institutions. Most of the things that I've learned aren't from school, unfortunately. In fact, I've probably forgotten 95% of what I've learned in school. Most of the things that I've learned about and put on this channel are by my own learning, my own reading, my own engagement. And so we don't have to accept these traditional institutions if they don't serve us anymore. Remember, institutions, societal institutions, are there to serve the people. They aren't there so that we have to work for them so they can expand endlessly for their own sake at the cost of the rest of the society, at the cost of breaking the social contract, at the cost of abandoning their social responsibilities. We are not slaves to these institutions. These institutions should be there to serve the whole society. And so we don't need to accept a world where we simply have to go through these avenues of learning and training and employment, which may not always give us incentives to do so. We can engage in these alternate forms and reap the rewards of it much better than we would in a traditional institution, anyways.